The tab is still open. It may say uploaded, it may say sent, or whatever word closes it. Nothing closes, however. You sit there for a second longer than you need to, and the cursor is blinking as if it's waiting for something else to come from you. There isn't anything else. That was it. That was all you had to offer. That was the thing that you kept thinking about earlier, and it was the thing that felt so heavy when it was still ahead of you, when it was still something that you hadn't done yet. Now that it's done, the room has yet to move. Nothing has changed. You check it again, and it's not because you don't trust it, but it's just to feel it again. It's just to have that sense of feeling one more time. It's just to see if there's something that you missed the first time by accident, and there isn't. However, unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that there's nothing that you missed. It is the exact same. It exists. It's real. It's present. It is already behind you in a way that still feels a bit too quick. You thought that there would be a second chance, or a second where it actually felt like it landed, or you felt like something changed in your mind. There is no landing. There's no soft pad to land on. It just happened. Earlier, it had weight in your mind, and you could feel that object, that item, that feeling in your mind sitting directly in front of you, shaping the day. Everything kind of pointed towards that object. Everything pointed towards that destination. Even small things felt connected to it. You started linking all these dots. This means this, that means that. Just to have some sort of sense that you were completing it, or you were getting towards the task. It felt like you were actually leading towards something. Now it's here, and nothing points to it anymore. It doesn't pull anything with it. It's not even disappointing to you. That would at least be something in your mind to feel. It is just neutral in a way that doesn't make any sense, considering how much space it took up in your mind before. You keep waiting for the moment or the part where it registers properly, yet it never will. I'm here to tell you that it never will. It will never click. Again, you're going to stay there for a bit longer than usual, and it feels like it might arrive later. Maybe if you stay there for just another 5 minutes, you'll get that feeling in your mind. Maybe it's a delayed reaction. Maybe it's something that will catch up to you. It doesn't, and it never will. Yet again, it never will arrive. And there's a part of you that's going to keep trying to recreate the feeling. You're going to scroll back, and you're going to read the message again, and you're going to look at it from a slightly different angle. You're going to change nothing, just trying to re-experience it. It will not change. It is simply flattened. And you remember how it felt earlier when it was still ahead of you. There was something there, and it wasn't just excitement. It wasn't even excitement exactly. It wasn't a feeling of joy or looking forward. It was more like a tension. It was direction towards something that you actually wanted to do. A sense of direction, a sense of something that was going to be resolved in front of you into something else. And you were able to sit in that. You were able to feel that. You could stay with that moment. You could stay with that resolution. It made sense to actually stick with that resolution. And now that there is nothing to stay in or sit with, and just the result, you realize that the result doesn't hold anything. But you'll never admit that. So what you do is instead you open something else. And there is always something else. And it's strange how quickly that something else will appear. You don't even have to look for that something else. It's always there. It's always ready for you. It's slightly in front of you again. It's another object for you to try and hyperfixate upon. It's never as clear and it's never as defined, but it's always enough to move towards something. And it's always enough to replace what just disappeared from your mind. That feeling that you were chasing for so long, it's now just been replaced by this blur in front of you, by the horizon. You start to think about it without deciding to. Small things start to build up at first, adjustments, ideas, theories in your mind, they start to build. What you would do differently this time, what could have been sharper, what could have been done more efficiently, what could have felt better. And it builds quietly in your mind. These ideas start to stack upon one another, and they do feel a bit familiar this time. You recognize the shape of the ideas, and you've been here before. You know that you've been here before because you went through this exact same thing before. And there's a point where you almost catch it, and it's right in the middle of that shift between the two objects. It's where one thing ends and the next one begins without any sort of space in between. There's no loading zone. There's no time to think or enjoy the moment that actually just happened. There's no time to realize what you've just gone through. You're able to feel both in 1 second. You're able to be stimulated by both at the same time, so much so to the point where your mind cannot actually comprehend the situation that's in. The thing that just happened is already gone, and the thing that is yet to happen is already pulling you. It's a bit paradoxical. It feels strange when I put it out there to you. It feels like you shouldn't be stuck in that middle zone. The moment, however, does not last at all. It is just too easy to move past, and because of that, you wonder for a second if it's actually supposed to feel this way. Not in a big way. It's just, is this it? You ask yourself that. Is this all there is to it? But even that doesn't fully form in your mind, because forming it would mean staying there. Forming it would mean having to answer the question. And staying there, answering that question, feels wrong to your mind. It feels like you're wasting time, not moving forwards. So what you do is you move forwards. And it isn't like things aren't good at all. It's just that that's what makes it harder to notice the things that aren't good. Nothing is broken per se. Nothing has to be destroyed. Nothing has to be falling apart. Things still work. Things still function in your life, and you do things, and they happen, and they continue on, and they lead to other things. And from the outside, everything lines up to everyone else around you. But there is just absolutely no point where anything settles for once. And you try to remember if in your entire life there ever was a point where things settled. Not in a nostalgic way, just in a factual way. It's just in a moment where something ended and it didn't immediately become something else. It's where it actually felt complete. And it's harder than it should be to reminisce on that moment. It's harder to think if there's ever been a moment in your life where that's actually happened. And you can think of things that have mattered in your life. You can think of things that should have for once been enough, and moments which at the time felt like they were building towards something final, to some sort of conclusion. And then they didn't stay. That exact same stimulation, that exact same feeling happened again. They all turned into something that you simply remember instead of something that you're still inside. And memory never holds the weight the same way a resolution does. And there's something strange about how quickly things become before, how quickly things become the past, even while you're still looking at them in front of you. And you notice it in smaller places too. You may finish something that you've been putting off for a while, and finally saying something that you've been holding back forever, and getting something that you've been waiting on for eons. And for a second, there is a space where something could have landed. And then that space closes instantly. And it's not a dramatic close. It just disappears without you even noticing how quickly it's gone. And then you start to realize it's not about what the actual thing itself is. The size or the shape or the feeling of the object doesn't change it. The importance doesn't even change it. And even the effort doesn't seem to change it for some reason. It happens anyway. The thing arrives and then it's over. Not in the sense that it's finished, but in the sense that it's already moved out of the place where it felt like it mattered in your life. You don't resist it. You simply adjust to it. You start relying on what comes next, and not consciously next, but just where the weight feels like it should be. It's always slightly ahead of you, and that's where things feel alive. And it's not when they're here, but it's simply when they are coming. And maybe that's why it's so hard to stay still after something happens to you. Because staying still means sitting in that flat space where nothing is pulling you forwards yet. It's so much easier to move. There is a kind of, a rhythm to it. And it's not a forced rhythm. It's just a rhythm that's constant. There's something ahead of you, something reached, something ahead again. You don't question it most of the time, because why would you? It works. Your life still moves. The cogs are still spinning. But every now and then you catch that moment. Not the whole thing, but you catch just a glimpse of it right after something ends, before the next thing fully takes over. That same feeling I was talking about before. And then there's a quiet thought that starts in your mind. That was it. Done. Donezo, it's over. And that thought doesn't stay long enough to answer anything. Because answering would mean sitting there without moving. I'm going to say it once again, it's staying there without reaching for the next thing. It's staying there without letting that forward pull take your life over again. And there is absolutely nothing for you in that space, or at least you think. So you leave it, and then the next thing is already there. And again, it's not big, it's just enough. And then, again, the whole cycle starts. This video starts to feel like a loop, right? My talking starts to feel like a loop, because there really isn't a moment where this life doesn't feel like a loop. This life of living that fake life, fulfilling things by moving to the next. Things happen and then they just don't stay. And somehow that doesn't stop anything. And again, the cycle will continue starting. But I'm going to give you a step to try and fix it. Right after something finishes, just don't move for once. That is the whole step. That's the whole actionable step. Leave it open and don't click anything. Don't reach for the next tab. Don't reach for the next item, even if it's an automatic feeling. Just sit there with that moment for 1 second. That discomfort that you feel in that gap, that urge to move on, is the part that you usually skip. And that's why this loop continues going on and on. Stay in it for once. Stay in there, not thinking, not analyzing, not trying to figure out every single problem and every single next step to fix this whole solution. Just noticing what is actually there when nothing is pulling you forward. Because normally you will let that space go immediately. Entirely it's gone. You'll feel it before anything can actually register. You'll feel it before your mind can actually comprehend what is happening to itself. And that's why everything feels like it disappears so quick, because you are the one not letting it land. So force the landing and pick one moment in your day where you can actually stop and reflect for once. Something that you may have finished, it could be small, it could be big. And instead of transitioning in that thing that you finished, just stop there for 30 seconds, a minute, 10 minutes, however long you think is necessary. No phone, no next tab, no next reel, no next message. Just no, not even planning for the future. Just sit there and feel what's actually been left behind with you. And it won't feel like much at first, but that's kind of the whole point. That's what you've been skipping, that whole not feeling like much. And if you do this consistently, something will change. And it won't be the outcomes, but instead it's your ability to register it before it turns into the next thing. That is the whole actionable step.